Hey, stop whatever you're doing for a second. Seriously, put the phone down. Well, not literally keep watching, but just pause. Because I want to ask you something that nobody actually asks anymore. Who are you? And before you say your name or your job title or I'm a student or I'm a parent, stop. Because that's not what I mean. That's not even close to what I mean. I mean you. The thing behind all of that. The version of you that exists at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep and the room is dark and quiet and your brain just runs. That version. Who is that?
Here's why I'm asking. A few years ago, a psychologist named Dan McAdams ran a really simple experiment. He sat people down, regular people, not patients, not people in crisis, and he just asked them to describe themselves. And almost every single person started with what they do, their job, their role, their relationship to other people. I'm a teacher. I'm a mom. I'm the funny one in my friend group. Almost nobody described what they actually felt like on the inside. And when he pushed them, when he said, okay, but who are you when none of that exists? When you're alone, when the title is gone, people got uncomfortable. Some people got genuinely upset. Not because it was a hard question academically, but because they genuinely didn't know the answer. And I remember reading that and thinking, yeah, that tracks. Because think about your own life for a second. Think about a time someone asked, so tell me about yourself. What did you say? You probably talked about where you're from, what you study or what you do, maybe a hobby or two, and it felt fine in the moment, right? Normal. Totally normal. But here's the thing. That answer, that little rehearsed paragraph you give people, that's not you. That's your resume. That's the version of you that you built for other people to understand quickly. It's a summary, a shortcut. And somewhere along the way, a lot of us started believing the shortcut was the actual destination. There's a concept in psychology called the self concept. Basically, it's the story you tell yourself about who you are. And researchers have found something wild. The self-concept isn't fixed. It isn't something you're born with. It shifts, it bends, it changes based on who you're around, what you're told, what keeps happening to you over and over again. Which means, and stay with me here, the you that you think of as you was largely built by other people. Okay, I know that sounds a bit intense, but let me make it real. You know that one thing you always say about yourself? Maybe it's, I'm not a maths person, or I'm terrible with relationships, or I'm just not the confident type. Where did that come from? Because you weren't born believing that. Some version of that belief was handed to you. A teacher said something. A parent compared you to someone. You failed at something once, publicly, and you decided that meant something permanent about you. And now you carry it around like it's fact, like it's carved into you. There's actually research on this. Carol Dweck at Stanford. You might have heard of her. She's the one behind the whole growth mindset thing. She found that the labels we give ourselves, especially early in life, literally change how our brain processes new information. If you believe you're not creative, your brain starts filtering out evidence that contradicts that. It literally ignores the times you were creative because the brain loves consistency. It wants the story to stay the same. So we become the story, even if the story was never true to begin with. And here's where it gets really interesting and a bit uncomfortable. Most of us have two versions of ourselves running at the same time. There's the version we present, the one that's polished, appropriate, that says the right things and laughs at the right moments and posts the right stuff online. And then there's the version underneath, the one that's messier, more scared, more uncertain. the one that sometimes feels like a complete fraud, even when things are going well. Psychologists call this the imposter phenomenon, and it's not rare. It's not something only anxious people feel. Studies suggest that around 70% of people, 70%, experience it at some point in their lives. 70% of people walking around feeling like they've somehow fooled everyone, and it's only a matter of time before someone figures it out.
But here's the question nobody stops to ask. What if the thing you think is the fake version is actually closer to the truth than the polished version? What if the vulnerability, the uncertainty, the not having it all figured out, what if that's not a flaw in you, but just the honest reality of being human? Because here's something I think about a lot. We live in this era where identity has become this curated thing. You pick your aesthetic, you build your personal brand, you decide what you stand for, and you put it in your bio in 150 characters or less. And I'm not saying that's all fake, but I am saying that when you spend that much time managing how you appear, you can start to lose track of how you actually are. There's a researcher named Sherry Turkle. She spent years studying how people interact with technology and identity, and she said something that I haven't been able to shake since I first read it. She said we're so used to performing versions of ourselves that many people have genuinely lost the ability to just be themselves without an audience, without someone watching, without the context of how it looks. Think about that. When's the last time you did something with absolutely zero thought about how it would appear to someone else? Not what you'd say if someone asked, not whether you'd post about it, just you, doing a thing, existing, no audience, no narration. For a lot of people, that's actually really hard to remember. And here's the kicker. Here's the part that I think is the most important thing in all of this. The reason we lose track of who we are, the real reason, isn't social media, it's not peer pressure, it's not even other people. It's that we never actually sit with ourselves long enough to find out. Think about how much of your day is filled with noise. Music, podcasts, notifications, conversations, background TV, scrolling. And I'm not judging. I do it too. But there's a reason we feel the silence. Because silence brings you face to face with yourself. And for a lot of people, that's the most uncomfortable place they can be. William James, one of the founding fathers of modern psychology, writing in the 1890s, he said that the greatest revolution of his generation was the discovery that human beings, by changing their inner attitudes, could change the outer aspects of their lives. He was saying this over 100 years ago. The inside shapes the outside, not the other way around. But we live like it's the other way around. We think, get the right job, right relationship, right following, right body, and then I'll feel like myself. Then I'll feel settled. Then I'll know who I am. And some of you watching this right now have gotten those things, or some of them, and you still don't feel settled. You still feel like something's slightly off, like you're waiting for some moment when it all clicks and you finally feel like you. That moment isn't coming from the outside. It never was. There's a concept from existential psychology, this idea that humans are the only creatures who can reflect on their own existence. We can step back and look at ourselves. We can ask, why am I doing this? And does this actually mean something to me? No other animal does that. That ability, that capacity for self-reflection, it's both the most powerful thing about us and, honestly, the most terrifying. Because it means you are responsible. Not for everything that happened to you. You're not responsible for what you were told, what you were handed, the family you grew up in, the early experiences that shaped you. That wasn't your fault. But you are responsible for what you do with the self you've ended up with. Whether you question it, whether you examine it. whether you ever get genuinely curious about what's underneath all the layers. And most people don't. Not because they're lazy or unaware, but because nobody ever told them it was worth doing. So let me tell you something, clearly, in case no one ever has. You are worth examining. Not the version of you that performs well. Not the version that's useful to people. Not the version that everyone approves of. You, the full, complicated, sometimes contradictory, scared and brave at the same time human underneath all of that. That person is worth paying attention to. Because here's what the research actually shows. The people who know themselves most clearly, not perfectly, not completely, but genuinely, they make better decisions. They have more stable relationships. They're more resilient when things go wrong. They're less likely to spend their lives chasing things that don't actually matter to them. Not because they're smarter or more disciplined, but because they're not operating from a false map. They know what actually matters to them versus what they were told should matter. That self-knowledge, that is the foundation for everything. So, I'm going to leave you with something to actually sit with. Not a solution, not a 5-step plan, just a question. If you took away your job, your social roles, your relationship statuses, your achievements, your failures, your reputation, everything external, if you stripped all of that away and just looked at what's left, what's there? What do you actually value? Not what sounds good to say you value. What genuinely makes you feel like yourself? Not what you think should make you feel like yourself. What are you afraid of that you've never admitted, not even to yourself? That's not navel-gazing. That's not self-indulgence. That is the most important work you will ever do. Because everything else, every relationship, every decision, every path you take flows from who you actually are. Not who you're performing, not who you think you should be, who you are. And the beautiful, terrifying, hopeful truth is this: most people never find out. You still can. And if this kind of conversation means something to you, the honest, no fluff kind that actually makes you think, then stick around. Subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from. Not just content, conversations, the kind worth having.